Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Adult Child of Dysfunction. Today, we have with us Amber Tolbert. She is a licensed clinical social worker, a trauma therapist, supervisor, and founder of Healers in Practice, a soulful training and community space for therapists who want to stay in clinical integrity without burning out. With over a decade of experience in systems based healing and embodied supervision, Amber helps clinicians lead from recovery, not performance. Her work empowers therapists to build ethical, sustainable practices that reflect nervous system safety, not trauma reenactments. Hello, Amber. Welcome.
Hi, Tammy. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. And the more I read about what you do, I try to get a basic general overall before I get on these episodes, just so I kind of know the person. And the more I read about what you do, the more I absolutely love and feel completely in alignment with what you do and who you are. So, um,
You.
we're just going to jump right in because I know throughout this conversation, we're going to tell a lot of your story. And I want to get as much information into this short time that we have together as I possibly can. So,
Okay.
obviously, being someone who works in as a therapist with children and trauma and all that other stuff, give us like a 2 minute background of why, what led you into this path.
Yeah. Um, well, probably the same way many other people got into their path. I grew up in a home of dysfunction. I grew up in a home of dysfunction related to trauma. My parents suffered some trauma in their backstory, and as the youngest of four girls, most of my life was included a lot of numbing and medicating to survive the trauma that existed before me. So, whether that was from my father's Navy times or um, just going through their life as young adults and adults, there was a lot that they had to survive and figure out how to cope with. I grew up on a farm, so I am used to pulling up my bootstraps and just getting shit done. Oh, sorry.
No, you're
Um,
good.
but I'm also a Navy brat, so those just fly out of my mouth. There was probably a good 5 to 10 years that really resented my childhood, and now I miss it. It gave me pretty much everything that I have today, but I had to go through a lot of shadow work and healing to get to where I am, and I'm so grateful that I did because, yeah, there was lessons in all of it.
Absolutely. And I tell people as soon as you can start learning the lessons and look at life as happening for you and not to you, then your whole world shifts and changes.
Yes.
And that's not
Yeah.
my quote. That's somebody else's quote, but I use it all the time because it's so profoundly true. Like,
Yes.
when you were in the throes of it and whatever your toughest time was, you said 5 to 10 years, whether it was teenage years or young childhood years, whatever it was, you obviously weren't looking from the compassionate side that you just came at it from.
Yes.
Right now you're talking about your parents and the trauma they endured, and that's very hard to do in the beginning
Yes,
because
it
it's
is.
in the beginning it's all about you and it should be because you literally are a child just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So talk about some of the because a lot of people people throw out these words, and the more I realize I'm listening to more and more of these podcasts, I'm realizing that there's a lot of these big words thrown out there now, like I don't know, like people just use the word narcissistic like it's an
Oh,
everyday thing, and it is, don't get me wrong, but it's some of these words that just I don't know, they don't resonate with everybody until they're explained, and that's kind of what I like to do. But one of them is survival strategies,
mm,
and we talk a lot about, oh well, I came up with these survival mechanisms or these survival strategies when I was a child and now they don't serve me. That seems to be all over the place everywhere. Can you
yeah.
explain what, in your example, what some of those strategies or survival mechanisms might have been when you were a child?
Yes, absolutely. Um, People pleasing is probably the biggest one for me. I have others, but growing up the youngest of four girls, my role in the family was what we call the mascot. So I was really good at deflecting. I was really good at being cute and making people laugh so that the pathology or the disease that was present wouldn't take over. And the family system that I grew up in really depended on me for that role. It was necessary to be a pressure release at times. It was necessary to keep dad calm or keep him laughing, because as soon as the beer took over, it got pretty scary. So people pleasing and being humorous or funny, the little comedian, the little cute one, was probably my biggest role. The older I got, the more I became what some people that associate codependency with is called the control addict. And so trying to control my outside world more and more, which would look like cleaning and organizing my room, or cleaning mom's cabinets in the kitchen so that she would be really happy and proud of me. That's combining two of them at the same time. But the survival techniques are very much what you said. The intention of them is to bring safety. And in the moment, they work really well, which is why we adopt them. The older we get, they usually don't serve us as well, though.
Absolutely. And those are good examples. And I'm picturing, especially the people pleasing one and because I kind of bounced around depending on my age as to what role I was taking, whether it was the mascot or the hero or the invisible child. I just did an episode yesterday, and that guest was 100% the scapegoat. And so,
Yeah,
like all of these family roles, we all take these different roles, and they're called different things here and there, but they're
yeah,
basically the same concept. But
totally.
the mascot I totally get, because I was the funny one, and
Mhm.
I was always breaking it up with humor, and I think that served me even worse in a way, because on the outside I looked so happy.
Yep.
I looked like, like what could possibly be wrong? She's always laughing, she's always smiling, she's always, you know, making a joke. And what they didn't realize, like you said, is that those jokes sometimes were the difference between a physical situation or not. Sometimes,
Right.
I mean, they could really break up a situation, and even if it was just for a second.
Hmm.
But oh, I can completely and totally relate to that. So I love that, because like I said, I like to get down to the basics and really explain to people what these things are. So
Yeah.
people pleasing is I think that's one of the biggest ones that follows us in, because it shows up everywhere. It shows
Mhm.
up in our jobs. It shows up with our, just I used to call myself, Tammy the doormat. Like I
Mhm.
just,
Yeah.
what do you want me to do? I don't care. I'll do whatever, because I just like to keep the peace.
Hmm.
And that is just your nervous system saying, I need to keep it safe. I need to make sure
Right.
that nothing's going to drop, or nothing's going to fall, or nothing's going to fall apart. And I will do whatever it takes to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
So thank you for
Very
sharing that,
true.
because that's a very, very good example of what that looks like. But
Yeah.
you've done a lot of work, and you've got degrees, you're doing this for a living and everything else.
Yeah.
Talk about kind of how you started, like where you got started, and did you have an aha moment? Was it all of a sudden just, did something happen, or did you just feel unhappy in general?
Yeah. Um, I would say the biggest moment, and um, just preparation, because this is a little dark, is I started therapy as soon as I got out, as soon as I left my parents' home when I was 18. I started therapy and started exploring what I knew probably from the age 11 took my dad away, was alcohol. Because as soon as I would see the beer, he would be gone. Um, in an abstract way, not in a literal way. In an emotional way, he would be gone, but still very present. Um, and unfortunately, being the youngest of four girls, my sisters saw a lot more of that than I did. And when I was 24, um, the addiction took him away. It was too much for him. He couldn't handle it. And that was my big turning point. That is when ACA started for me, Adult Child of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And it's when I was really angry. It's when I was pissed. Because pretty much from age 11, I can remember writing him letters and doing things trying to save him. I can remember trying to get him to go to 12-step meetings at 11. I don't even
Right.
know how an 11-year-old knows what a 12-step meeting is, but
Right.
She was determined, my younger self. But my aha moment happened when I lost him. There was a part of me that died with him. And as hard as that was, it was also probably the only thing that where he was in his disease process could bring him peace.
Right.
Um, so in my moments and in my clarity and in my healing process, like you said, I had to go through the blame and fault first. I had to be pissed. I had to first blame someone other than me, because I took responsibility for most of my life for him, and it was really confusing how I failed.
Right.
So in my own healing journey, that blame went from him, and then I took it back. And then somehow I found someplace in the gray area, as I call it, um, where I could separate him from his disease process. And that allowed me to love him and hate his disease. As well as with my mom, she had to survive his disease process too through codependency. So being able to separate my mom from her codependency is what allows me to love them and what allowed me to heal, because the longer I held on to the anger and the rage and the blame, the sicker I got.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you probably did a lot of inner child work. You just said that you've mentioned it twice. You said that younger me, and that is literally the whole idea of this podcast is it's the younger you that has these wounds that needs to be parented, that needs to be loved, that needs to feel that. And I'm a true believer in, whether it's your body, whether it's your mental state, your physical state, whatever it is, it all goes back to something being stored, holding you down, having a grip on you.
Yes.
So I'm sure you did a lot of inner child work, writing, journaling. You were fortunate actually in that you had that aha moment at 24,
Hmm.
because there are people that don't have it until they're in their 40s and 50s, and all of a sudden they're like,
Yes.
wow. And they hear something and they go, that's so me. Why can't I stand up for myself? Why can't I walk proudly? Why can't I, why do I get triggered when, I'm a teacher? Why do I get triggered when a second grader does something? And just all these
Yeah.
different things. But I know you, at some point, you said, okay, I'm going to take my story, whether I was 11 or whether I was 6. I don't know where the majority of the hurt came in.
Hmm.
And I'm going to turn it into something good.
Hmm.
Talk about that process, what you went through innerly with that process.
Yeah. For me, that was in the clinical world, we look at shadow work as being able to recognize all of those survival tools and skills that we needed to have in order to make it through. And we do that shadow work by healing those pieces of ourselves. For me, I think my dark night of the soul was when I was 24 and I lost him because I lost a piece of me with him. Um, and I think my whole family, in my opinion, I don't know if they would agree with that, but I think they lost a piece of themselves too. So our family was never the same. It still isn't the same. But my own personal journey had to do with giving to myself what my parents didn't have to give to me. I have a little one, little Am is what I call her. She's about 4 or 5, and she stands on the front porch of the house that my parents built, of which I consider home, in this teeny tiny little farm town. And she has on a black Miami Vice t-shirt with purple shorts, barefoot, and a purple purse. And she's sassy as hell. She is just on it, doggone it. Um, that's what I go back to when I need to remember my power. The older she got, the more wounded she became. I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and physical abuse. And through doing those inner child healing and through identifying the wounds, but healing those wounds, I became more integrated. I became more one person rather than how you might have said Tammy the doormat. I said Amber the chameleon. I could be
Yes.
anything anyone wanted me to be. And it served me really well. But in my healing, that's what I had to let go of. I can't be the chameleon anymore. I have to be this integrated, authentic person because my parents didn't have to give to me what I needed. They loved me very much, and I wholeheartedly believe that. and I believe I needed more. So I don't have to live the rest of my life in deficit. I get to give that to me
Right.
through reparenting, through my own program, and through inner child healing. And that's what shifted me. That's why I do what I do, because I didn't even know this was a thing until I did some of my own healing. And then I knew this was my purpose. I think that's why I suffered Dark Night of the Soul so young, because it is my purpose to support people in recognizing that healing is so possible and I can actually still love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love, and we're going to turn this around to what I think I love most about what you do is I love that you've found a way, a gentle way with your other therapists and your other clinicians that you work with to help people heal without re-traumatizing them over and over and over again, because that's part of why I stopped for a while. I was like, this is not worth it. Like, I can't keep doing this. And I knew there was more. I knew it was inside of me. I knew I had to get the stuff out, but I was like, can't we do something, And it wasn't until I found somebody that had kind of your approach that was like, no, we can acknowledge that that event happened, but we don't have to relive it. We don't have to
Right.
experience it over and over again. So talk about that, because that I think is what keeps people away from healing. It keeps them away from starting the process.
Yeah. Well, I believe, this is my own personal opinion and judgment, that healers are healers because it's our role. That's what we're here for. And as a healer, it is my job to stay in my own healing. The work I do is very triggering to my own nervous system. It's very triggering to my body. And if I don't stay in alignment with my own healing, sometimes unintentionally, I can cause harm. Um, Being able to separate my story from my fellow, I call my clients fellow travelers. Being able to separate my story from my fellow travelers that I'm guiding and supporting. I don't fix them. We heal ourselves. We are our own medicine.
Right.
Amber rescuing Amber is how I got to where I am today, not waiting for someone else to rescue me. And it was really hard to understand what that meant. So when I work with clients, and a lot of my clients are healers, um, it is about recognizing, sometimes it is about telling a story or telling a narrative, because so much of our core wounds are about not being seen and not being heard.
Right.
Sometimes words are needed, sometimes stories are needed. And research has proven that trauma is stored in the bodies, in the joints, in the ligaments, and the tendons. It's not stored in our brain. So we have to have body work that incorporates into the healing process, because when we break up that trauma in our body, it has to have somewhere to go.
Right.
So my treatment model that I built is based in inner child healing, but it includes holistic healing that includes the chakras and somatic healing. So being able to use a mind, body, and spirit approach to what would it look like to healing, because in my judgment, in my belief system, I had a soul wound, not just a body wound.
No.
And so when I'm healing, I got to heal my soul, which is my mind, body, and my spirit. So that's what our treatment model represents. And being able to support healers so that we can continue guiding others is a really big passion of mine.
Then that's wonderful. So tell me about, I mean, just since I opened this can of worm, how might a therapist, like, how would you know if you are at a therapist or a counselor or a coach or whoever you're with, how might you know if they're maybe projecting, or what feelings might you get if you feel like, oh my gosh? Because I know some coaches and healers and they're
Yeah,
just starting out, and there's nothing wrong. Everybody has to start somewhere.
absolutely.
But like you said, like I wasn't ready. The first 15 years that I was healing myself, there's no way I could have helped anybody else other than to tell my story and tell them they're not alone, because I feel like I would have done more damage to them. I would have been
Mhm.
projecting my, like, no, like I needed to be the support and the guidance and the one to answer questions and to walk with you, not
Right.
beside you, kind of holding you back at the same time. What signs or what should people look for
Hmm.
I guess I'm asking you.
When I work with clients, every client I've ever assessed, I have said to them, it will get worse before it gets better. I give those realistic expectations so that we start to build the relationship with self. Anything that comes up for me or my clinicians or the trainings that I give other healers is whatever comes up for you and your body in a session with a fellow traveler is coming up for them. So
Right.
if I don't honor my body in a session with a fellow traveler, I'm going the wrong direction. And I know that feels counterintuitive. I know theoretically we are taught that it is not about me, it is about the client. I completely disagree with that. I believe my nervous system is my compass for healing. And I can give words to things that sometimes fellow travelers can't give words to. It's not because I know them or I am the expert of them. It's because what I believe is as healers, I support previous versions of myself.
Yeah.
So that's why some of us are younger and we're getting into the field younger or starting our own practice or as a coach or whatever the role is in healing. It is about what makes that relationship beneficial is that I have a relationship with me and I can keep my body safe.
Yes.
If I am externally focused and I'm trying to control where a session is going, or I'm trying to control how a client's body is reacting, the client's going to feel that.
Hmm.
And the it's going to get worse before it gets better feels like it just lasts. I'm not noticing any relief. I'm not noticing any aha moments. I'm not um, being able to share what I'm learning about myself. And it's not because my healer is telling me, it's because I'm realizing it
Right.
through the guidance of the healer.
Right. Right. And I think, I know I kind of, while you're saying this, I have this picture of like a mom holding a baby too, in that
Mhm.
when you're trying, I mean, you are a compassionate, obviously you're a compassionate healer, but you're setting boundaries, you're giving them things to do, you're
Yes.
helping them along. But like you said, it's inside of them. But boy, does that baby feel that mom's energy.
Yes,
So
exactly.
if you're not, for one, if you're not believing what you're spewing,
Hmm.
it's they're going to feel that so bad. That's going to be such a disconnect in that congruent energy. It's going to be unbelievable. Like
Yes.
I do. I remember I had a really tough time with my third one, my third child. And I knew like I could not get that child to sleep. And I knew that like the more I tried, the more tense I got. And the more I was like, and I
Yes.
can remember handing him off to my 7-year old and being like, here you go. I
Hmm.
know it's 3 a.m. and I know you got to go to second grade tomorrow, but here you go.
Hmm.
And I knew that I had to do that because the more, we're all energy and we all feel it. So I think, yeah, you need to have your, as a practitioner or whatever you are, you need to have your nervous system kind of in check. That's why, anytime I talk, if I know a client's calling in 10 minutes, I'm just like,
Yeah.
make sure I'm set before I even talk to them because, yeah, it's like I say,
Hmm.
teachers consistently, I think, teachers and students, wounded teachers, I say, people that have their own work to do, they're constantly triggering each other back and forth. And
Yeah.
it makes for a really rough environment when nobody's nervous systems are kind of in even keel, I guess you could say. But
Yeah.
um
Following a theory isn't healing.
no,
And I encourage in my 2-day workshops when I'm teaching clients, healers doing this work have to do this work.
yeah,
And so if a healer is ever offended by one asking, do you do your own work? Then that's probably not the healer for you.
that's a red flag. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I say that too when you choose anybody, a therapist, a coach,
Yep.
anything. I am a firm believer in lived experience coaching or lived experience. You lived it. So if someone comes to me and they say, Tammy, I lost my husband, I'm like, whoa, like it hits me like a gut punch because I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I can totally I know what to say by what I've read in books, but I've never lost my husband. So I'm like, stay in my lane. Here's a grief coach. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
and but when someone comes to me and they say, wow, I've been going to therapy for 11 years, once a week, giving them $110, and in 18 minutes, you just told me more about why I was the way I am or whatever, and
Mhm.
something I can do to change that. And I'm like, because I was you.
Yeah.
Like, and so that to me is super important. I mean, my
Yep.
mother was a child psychiatrist, and
Mhm.
book knowledge, I have it all because she had her office in the house. So I read
Mhm.
all of her books, and I think I to this day I think that's the reason I survived, honestly,
Yeah.
because it's like I had the foresight and the general knowledge to be like, okay, this isn't right. This isn't right. And kind of knew what was going on. So in the back of my mind, I probably had maybe a little bit of empathy,
Mhm.
maybe. I don't know. I didn't feel like it back then,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so you asked a comment or asked me a question before or whatever on our paper, and I'm very curious about this answer. You asked me, what does healing while holding mean to you? Because I've heard that expression several times. So what does that mean to you, healing while holding?
Healing while holding means that I teach what I need to learn the most. What keeps me a effective healer is that I'm doing my own work. 18 years into recovery, I had a session last night with my healer. Healing while holding means I don't determine where the fellow traveler is going. I create a container. I create safety until they know how to create their own safety. And the only way I do that is in the relationship with me and me. So it is very confusing, and why I think I'm probably doing what I'm doing is all through grad school, all we hear is it's not about you. It's not about you. Don't cry in a session. And that's so confusing to then hear probably on this podcast, healers going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's all I talk about is the only way I can heal while holding is staying in my own healing.
Yeah.
And I get to benefit from every session that I do. And I think that's the humanness in what we do. And probably why some of us do what we do is that every day I'm healing more and more because I get to honor a process of someone else. So healing while holding is recognizing my own story always has to take priority because my nervous system is my compass. It's how I guide us out.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
Yeah.
So, because I've heard people say that, and then I'm like, oh, I wonder what that means to her,
Mhm.
Like, being that you
Yeah.
said, ask me that. So, yeah, no, that's great. And I love too that you're in kind of a different realm than some healers because you're guiding healers. You're
Mhm.
working with practitioners to help them see this path and this journey where it's not just
Yeah.
so it's like what you're carrying this on. And I absolutely love that because I think like I said, the lived experience part of it is so important, and they're all there. But you have to find practitioners and coaches and healers and whoever has to find a way to. Obviously, this is their heal. I mean, it's part of their healing, but they still, like you said, need to be able to hold the space and hold the safety. I I think we were talking before I got on here. It just drives me crazy that there's so much pseudo information out there,
Mhm.
and I think one of the most important things, and if you're out there listening right now, the most important thing is that when you are dealing with anybody, you feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. So talk about some things that you do when maybe you don't feel safe in your own body.
Mhm. Well, the way I teach this to healers and to fellow travelers is somewhere in our backstory, there is a wound that the person that was supposed to love and protected me happened to be the person that also hurt me, even unintentionally. And the lesson or the message that I get from that, the outcome of that is I don't know how to keep me safe. Many fellow travelers, when they come to work with my group practice, the Healing Collective, many of them have never had safety in their body ever. And that is a feeling that my team offers them through, excuse me, virtual counseling is, yes, I understand going into an office and feeling safe in that office is so important. And one of the reasons that my team is doing what it's doing is because we want to bring safety into your home.
Sorry,
So
my dog's barking.
that's okay. So what does that mean? That means that most of our triggers are right in our home. And so
Right.
how do we shift that? How do we create safety in our own home? Well, in sessions, I have to do that sometimes too. My dogs will go nuts because the Amazon guy comes up. I get overstimulated. Like I just left the session and now my body is louder than my brain. And I have to say to my client, hold on, I need to grab one of my rocks. My dogs are going nuts. I need to grab my selenite, put it on my chest. It's very much modeling, just like the co-regulation you talked between mom and baby. Sometimes in the fellow traveler relationship, that's what it looks like. Modeling is a really powerful tool. And what I'm modeling is my body is a priority right now, but I'm right here holding you. I'm
Right.
not letting go. And so the things that I do oftentimes are connecting with Mother Nature, Pachamama. That's my higher power. And it has a lot to do with things that are in Mother Nature or Pachamama. But that doesn't mean that that's what you have to do.
Right.
What brings my body comfort brings me safety. And so that's what I teach. And healers, just because we're supposed to be leading a session, it doesn't mean that I have to ignore my body. I can bring me with me into the session. And
Right.
that's the opposite of what we're taught theoretically and clinically to do. So I know what I'm saying feels really counterproductive or counterintuitive. I don't have to let a client go to honor my body. I can hold both at the same time.
Yep.
And that's so much of what I talk about what recovery is, because a lot of people, our culture associates recovery with substance use disorder. Well, my whole treatment model teaches trauma is the root of substance use disorder. And so when my body is dysregulated, if I abandon it to help someone else, well, that's my codependency.
Right.
So, how do I stay in me, bring me with me, and hold at the same time? It's healing while holding, it's modeling whatever I need in the moment. And my clients, my fellow travelers, they really respect that process. It took me a long time to be able to do that with confidence because it feels like I'm doing something wrong by taking care of me.
Yeah. It's almost like you feel like you're not a good therapist, quote unquote.
Exactly.
And at the
Yeah,
end of the day, we're all human, but there is no more powerful way to teach someone and to hold space for someone than to mirror them or model them. Like
exactly.
that's how kids go, that's part of the problem is we didn't have good people to model in the beginning.
Exactly.
If we
Who
had
didn't
had
know
good,
how to.
we
Yeah.
didn't know how to. Exactly. So that's very powerful for people listening to that. I have a good friend that is a grief coach, and she started her whole business by just going online, starting a Facebook, and just being vulnerable, just telling people, like, this is what it feels like, guys. This, and then she got her, certifications for grief counseling and all this stuff. And boy, her fans adore her because they watched her grow.
Yeah.
And with that, they grew along with her. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So, I mean, we could literally talk about probably, my head is spinning with like 15 different things I want to talk to you about and ask you about and everything else. But if people want to work with you, I know you mentioned you're the Collective Healing or Healing Collective. Is that a group or what is that?
Yep, the Healing Collective is a multi-state virtual group therapy practice. We honor our clients, and so we are private pay. We don't accept insurance because we are multi-state and because we do non-traditional therapeutic services that aren't covered by insurance. So rather than allowing insurance to determine how we treat, we determine it based on what the client needs. We provide a whole continuum of services, everything from the traditional hourly therapy services to Reiki, chakra clearing, energy work. And The Healing Collective is, I'm very proud to say, my team and my business model is run from a touchstone of recovery. So my whole team, on our bios, you can read each of our recovery stories, who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do. That is our place of clinical integrity. And that is what bleeds over and created Healers in Practice. I want to support more healers that deserve as much healing as they're honoring other people. So our culture can sometimes stigmatize and judge that. Healers aren't the great at asking for help.
Right.
Um, and I want to change that. I want healers to get all the healing they deserve and be able to offer that clinical integrity of recognizing that everything I'm offering is because I'm doing it. Yeah.
Love it. So if people want to work with you, want to check out your stuff, where is the absolute best place for them to go?
The website is the-healingcollective.com or healersinpractice.com. Either way, you can find me. I still do a clinical caseload in my group practice, and I work with healers through Healers in Practice.
Love it. And I will put all that in the show notes so you don't have to write it down real quick. We will get that. Just check out the show notes. I know I
Thank
always picture,
you.
I'm always in the car when I'm listening to
Yeah.
podcasts. I'm like, what did they say? And I'm like, don't want to
Yeah.
put anybody in danger here.
Yeah.
So, well, I really appreciate you coming on, Amber. I think this was great. And you are a wealth of knowledge. And I absolutely love your compassionate and just your real way of dealing with things instead of, like you said, you do things that are not necessarily clinically what the big norm is. But at the end of the day, the people that have went through it and have healed from it know what you need to get better and know what you need to thrive. So I appreciate that.
Exactly. Thank you, Tammy, and thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for sharing our message.
Oh, anytime. But you're not off the hook yet. Before you
Okay.
go, if you had to give one last message, word of advice, words of wisdom from Amber, or something tangible they can either do today or use today, what would it be?
Bring me with me. I don't have to put me down to love someone else.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Amber.
Thank you. Thank you, Tammy. Have a good day.
You too. For everybody else out there, you heard so many tips and tricks. And remember, everybody deserves to heal. And healers are in this for a certain reason a lot of times, but it doesn't mean the healing journey is over for them. It never is over. We're
Right.
layers. It's one day at a time. It's 1 minute at a time sometimes. But the most important message here is take care of yourself because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You all have a blessed day and we'll see you next week.